Good morning, Mariners, and welcome to today's assembly. My name is Ellis Hawkins, and I have the privilege of being surrounded by a distinct panel of guests who are involved in local environmental organizations, education, and activism. Today, I will be posing questions to each of our panel members about climate, environment, and sustainability. Now, I'd like you all to please introduce yourselves. Let's go in clockwise order with your name and your role in Seahome or the community.
I'm Carter Maiden. I teach here at Seahome Chemistry and AP Environmental Science.
I'm Abby. I'm a sophomore at Seahome and a student representative.
I'm Michael Fear. I founded and lead Walk a Million Trees project, a local nonprofit that's planting and protecting 1 million trees.
I'm Grace Wong, and I'm on the faculty of Urban and Environmental Planning and Policy at Western Washington University and the director of the Sustainability Engagement Institute.
Amazing. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to talk with you all. So let's get right to it. I'd like to start with Michael. So I think in the past, 20 years, even more so, we've been hearing this word climate change, in all the news organizations and on TV shows and everywhere in pop culture. So kind of what's a pretty basic definition of climate change and kind of define climate change?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, climate change essentially boils down to the atmosphere having too much carbon. But that has a lot of ripple effects. So what I'm going to say for like 30 seconds here is going to sound pretty dire, but I want to be real with everybody. I mean, as atmospheric carbon goes up, which it has been since industrial times, temperatures are going up, so we're facing things increasingly like severe weather changes. There's mass migrations beginning elsewhere in the world. There's ocean rise that's occurring as ice caps begin to melt. Then there's increasing wildfires in many countries, especially in the northern latitudes. And and I could go on and on for quite a while saying the dire things. But here's the thing. So there's no question it's heartbreaking and dire in the big picture of what might be happening around us. And we're all going to face that for the rest of our lives, whether it's people my age or your age. But we can turn it around in this way. We can't count on what might happen globally, but we can turn it around by local, hands-on, your own action. And that's the thing of what this week upcoming is all about, Earth Week, is turning it around and doing something yourself to help out.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a great kind of definition of what's been going on. And then I want to go to Mr. Maiden now. So speaking as a teacher of the AP Environmental Science course at Seahome, what's a common misconception that you've heard among students, maybe in the first 3 weeks of class, and then something that you can maybe turn around as the year kind of goes on?
I'd say a common misconception, not just among students, but among everybody, is that, especially in the U.S., I think it's kind of underlying our whole culture is that we could probably just shop our way out of it.
Yeah.
And we could just, if we all buy some Allbirds and some upcycled clothing, I'm not knocking thrift to fit day, but we're just shopping. Like, oh, maybe I'll buy an electric car and that'll solve the problem. So I kind of think the underlying idea that we'll just keep buying stuff and that'll deal with climate change.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of a very basic thing, but definitely it's not going to totally fix it, right? And then Abby, I think you have a valuable perspective as a young person on this panel. So kind of speaking as a young person, like, how do you think climate change is going to affect your future? Like, if nothing's done?
I think it's gonna, affect our future greatly. Like every, non-delusional Seahome student understands that the environment is being hurt by climate change, and it goes beyond that, and it's really going to start to affect us. We're probably whatever % plastic by now, as well as thinking about how we're really lucky in Bellingham that we don't have a lot of the severe effects of climate change yet, but we can see this change starting and happening with our increased wildfires and just the weirdness of summer, and we're gonna see it get worse, and it's gonna suck.
Absolutely, I agree. If we do nothing, it's gonna bite us in the future. And then, Dr. Wong, speaking as the director of the Sustainability Engagement Institute, or kind of leading that at Western Washington University, specifically in schools and universities. I think we are all kind of in education. Michael's obviously from outside, but we're all in a school right now. So what do you think schools and universities can do, specifically locally to curb climate change in terms of, sustainability and other
So
methods?
that's a really great question, and I'm going to kind of start with one of the boring things really about schools, which is often curriculum. And I think about Mr. Baden teaching, AP Environmental Science, and it's a really great foundation for understanding the scientific methodology and the science behind conservation and environmentalism. But one of the things that I'm really proud of that we do at Western Washington University is that we've tried to kind of infuse sustainability throughout the curriculum. So what that means is if you're an English major, or if you're a history major, even if you're a music major, you'll have access to classes in sustainability. So both learning about the science of it, but also learning about other aspects of sustainability, like climate justice or activism. So I'm really proud of that at Western, how we've really started to look at sustainability no matter what your major is. You don't have to be an environmental science or biology major to get sustainability. So that's been really fun to work on over the years.
Amazing. Yeah, I think kind of making that more accessible is crucial to making it kind of more mainstream and this kind of idea that it's going to affect us in the future, right?
Yep.
I want to go back to Michael now, kind of keeping it more local. What's kind of some evidence of this climate change that you've seen in Bellingham or Whatcom County? Because I think, if people hear kind of what's going on locally, that's really kind of more, hits close to home.
So locally, we're experiencing long, hot, dry summers. In fact, we're going to probably have quite a whopper of one this coming summer, based on the early indications. Long, hot, dry summers means an increased wildfire potential, but it also means less water available, particularly in the Nooksack River. The Nooksack River now has really severe swings of hydrology. So it's either flooding part of the year, which is another climate impact during springtime and that kind of thing, and then in the summers, extremely low levels that aren't high enough to support the salmon. So flooding, long summers, wildfire potential, are all happening and a part of our local reality now. The flooding isn't just on the Nooksack. For those of you that were here, like in 2021, the flooding extended from the torrential rains that we increasingly have now into Bellingham and surrounds, in our urban areas. So that's part of the reality that'll occur increasingly. It won't necessarily occur every year, but it'll occur increasingly.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I was saying, kind of the local effects are going to kind of really, I think, shock people into Bellingham into realizing this is here to stay unless we don't do anything about it. And I think hearing about that was really important. And also kind of keeping it local, back to Abby, how can young people get involved, right? Because speaking as a young person kind of within COM and outside of COM, what are some opportunities that they can get involved?
Yeah, I think it's so great to be there because climate change, for one, it's so daunting and climate anxiety is so real. And so to turn that into action is hard, but it's important. So as an individual, we've got separated bins in most classes. We have a garbage, we have a recycling, and a paper recycling. Use them properly. I think almost every class there's a plastic bottle in each one, and that's important as an individual. And then being involved with CHOM Environmental Club, we connect with Walk a Million Trees Project and lots of other things about local work parties and events. So that's connected to restoration. Maybe it's tree planting, maybe it's ivy removal, but they're all very important to fighting climate change in our community.
Awesome. Yeah, kind of speaking to the ozone people, kind of get involved, right? If we want to fix this for future generations, we need to all be kind of doing our part here in Whatcom County, Bellingham, and all around the world. And we go back to Dr. Wong now. So I think environment and sustainability kind of in careers is becoming more popular with students in our generation, environmental engineering or tons of other stuff. So what specifically inspired you to enter sustainability, and maybe how can people in our generation get more involved in climate sustainability careers?
That's a great question, Ellis. So I grew up camping and just really appreciating the outdoors. And as I went to college, I started taking classes in forestry, which I really, really enjoyed. And it really started my career in really a passion for natural resources. So I originally taught natural resource policy and conservation, and it pivoted a little bit more towards sustainability because I think sustainability really is much more than about the natural environment, even though that's really what anchors what a lot of folks are interested in. So I would say it's not really important what major you choose, but having a great environmental science foundation is pretty important. But I am moved by high school students and college students every day on just their passion and their advocacy. So to just get involved, like what Abby said, is really important. And to find classes that can help you learn more and be passionate about environmental and sustainability issues. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know Dr. Wong was talking a bit earlier about education kind of within schools and stuff, and I want to swing back to Mr. Rain about that. So kind of coming from this perspective as a high school teacher in the public school system here in Bellingham, how do you think kind of climate and environment as a topic and like a subject in schools can be taught in more of a palatable way? Because I feel like what maybe young people hear in the news a lot is the gloom and doom of it. But how do you think that it can be taught in more, I don't know about a positive way, but kind of a more palatable way that allows students to kind of digest it more and kind of think about what they can do?
Yeah, I think you said gloom and doom, and Abby said climate anxiety, and I think that's, if all we hear is a negative, we have a tendency to just maybe freeze up and not do anything, and then maybe have some guilt associated with climate, like, oh no, I'm flying to Santa Barbara next week. What about the climate impact of my trip? But I'm not suggesting here that everyday actions are not important and good, but I am saying maybe that the big problem of climate change, we're going to need to solve at like the United Nations level. So number one, I don't think we should be feeling bad about our daily decisions necessarily, because I don't think that's going to help us get anywhere. And then number two, I think a big thing is that we aren't doomed, because if we look back at human history, 70 years ago we made the first nuclear power plant commercially operating, and about 50 years ago we went to the moon and came back alive, and like 40 years ago we got together as the whole world and banned this class of chemicals called CFCs that were destroying the upper layer of the atmosphere. So I think the doom part is that's just where we are currently, but if we focus too much on the gloom and doom, we're not going to maybe make forward progress, and I think that we can do hard things is kind of the main message.
Can I follow up on something Mr. Mead said? So what's interesting is like our conversations here haven't really talked about voting really as a powerful way to really address not just climate issues, but natural resource and other issues that we may really care about. And it's, I think it can be a really, really powerful tool. And when we think about like the history of things like the Clean Water Act and Clean Air Act, which all preceded probably almost all of you at this school, except for me and Michael, I really think about the legislative advances that have been made in, at the federal level. And following up on what Mr. Maiden says, it's like, I think our individual actions really matter, Abby. Like, stop using single-use plastics, or ride your bike to school, or ride the bus. Those things really matter at the individual level and the community level, but absolutely what Mr. Maiden said, this is a huge national and global issue that, and the United Nations has the Sustainable Development Goals, so they have sustainability in mind if folks could only get on board. So it's both a local and a global kind of, it is kind of sad sometimes, like there is some gloom and doom, but as I mentioned, I see high school and college students all the time with the passion and advocacy who are hopefully going to fix, some of the things that are broken right now.
100%, kind of touching on what you said at the beginning, voting, right? that's kind of one of the big things that we have, one of the big powers that we have as citizens of the United States of America. So we need to be exercising that and voting for the people that are going to make sure that we can have a future on this planet, right? So that's it. That's all the questions I have for you all today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for being here today. It was an incredible opportunity to talk with you all. I really want to thank you for sharing your opinions and your expertise with us all. Please remember, as you've heard on the announcements, next week we will be fundraising for the Whatcom Million Trees Project in Each Anchor. Please get your change and bills ready to donate to this great organization. The anchor that raises the most money will get to plant a unique prize. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.